Okay.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us again tonight. We are excited to have another virtual coffee talk. Please remember that you can go to the website if you'd like to input some questions, and we'd love to answer them. We've got a bunch of things going on around the school right now. First of all, Teacher Appreciation Week is this week, and we really appreciate the parents that have kind of come in throughout the week in order to show this recognition to our teachers who have worked so hard to help all the kids at school. We also, last week, had our Nature's Classroom week with grade 6 kids. And it was, again, a great experience for those kids. David and I got out there to stay overnight for a couple nights, and they were troopers, you know, really enjoying that experience, doing all kinds of hands-on activities as well as community building activities. And the Nature's Classroom staff were particularly impressed with how well our kids kind of bonded as a community, how much they were willing to kind of take risks and kind of just put themselves out there. There was some improvisational acting, like little mini classes that our kids were great at. There were some songs that they were singing with just no inhibitions whatsoever, and really kind of bonding together as a group. And so it was a great week, and our teachers were out there, you know, staying overnight with them and really enjoying that experience of getting to know the kids in a different atmosphere. So that's always a highlight of middle school, something that a lot of middle school kids remember forever. And so it was a great week that we had last week. Tonight we have Gretchen Powers and Jessica Beatty, our esteemed guests. We're going to talk a little bit later about social emotional learning and some of the efforts that are going on in the district, as well as our school here at Adams. But before we dig into that, David's going to share a little bit about some other things that are going on at school.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. So just kind of a reminder, some nuts and bolts of some things to keep on your radar as parents. We do have MCAS is coming up next week. We do have kind of our math session 1 starting on 8 a.m. on Tuesday, May 10th. That's going to run roughly from about 8 a.m. till 11. It's that first session. And then we have the second session for the math on the 12th. That Thursday, similar time. There are, like the ELA, there are some integrated part questions. What's different is that those questions aren't going to be their own section or section. They'll be integrated throughout the sessions. We'll have kind of those part-related questions. On May 17th and then the 19th, that's when we'll have the 8th grade will have their science, technology, engineering session 1 on the 17th and session 2 on the 19th for the MCAS. A reminder to staff, or sorry, to teachers that we have, to parents, we have the 6th grade band and chorus night is at the high school on the 25th at 7 p.m. That's in the auditorium. And then the 7th and 8th grade band and chorus concert is then on the 26th. So again, the 6th grade is on the 25th and the 7th and 8th grade is on the 26th. And then for 8th graders, we have our 8th grade community service day. That is coming up on the 26th. You should be receiving, or parents should be receiving communication sent out by kind of the 8th grade team leaders with information on permission slips, because we are out in the community for the community service day, but also kind of different equipment and clothing that students should wear, things to bring. We end up doing a cookout after, so we do some money collection for this year. We're doing pizza versus burgers. But it's a fantastic day, and we are always seeking volunteers. Both kind of physical volunteering, actually being there and taking on a group, but also kind of volunteering different equipment that you may have, or the ability to kind of purchase mulch or whatever that might be. We're always looking for donations from families, so we appreciate that. Spirit Week is coming up 23rd to the 26th. So that should be a fantastic thing that we're looking forward to. And as always, Teacher Appreciation Week is this week. I would be, or Nilo would be, upset if I didn't say that we do have some openings for the MSPTSA for next year. So please, if you are interested, we're always looking for some volunteers, parent volunteers. We have, it is I would say, a fantastic way for parents to kind of be in the know and be involved in the school. I think the positions that are open are for next year are secretary, volunteer coordinator, 8th grade dance coordinator, 8th grade community service day coordinator. If you are interested, you can email Neela Patel at metcalfepatel@gmail.com. That's also within, if you didn't catch that, that's also within the RAMS news that's emailed out bi-weekly. Okay, so that's where I am.
All right. Thank you.
So, ladies, just to kind of start us off, social emotional learning, that for some might be kind of a trigger word or an ed speak word or whatever.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about what that means for the kids?
Sure. Yeah, just for parents to understand what social emotional learning really is. Social emotional learning falls under the umbrella of executive skills, and I think that may be a term that a lot of you have heard and be wondering a little bit more about. But there are the thinking skills such as planning, organization, time management, working memory, and metacognition. Then there's the executive skills that guide our behavior. These are the social emotional learning skills. And they are response inhibition, which is like impulse control, emotional control, sustained attention, task initiation, flexibility, and goal-directed persistence. So these are all skills that students are actively working on developing throughout their childhood and into adolescence. What we've learned now is because of the way the brain develops, they're actually skills that people are developing into their early 20s. One thing that's really important to know is that during the middle school years, it's considered actually a period of brain growth, like a brain growth spurt. So they're at a particularly good age to be learning these skills while they're in middle school. And these are skills that get embedded into the work done within the middle school.
Very good. We have some initial questions that we can that I have here and dive into. How have you or the school integrated social emotional learning into the classroom this year?
So I think given our awareness on what Gretchen shared and how this is such a crucial time for kids to sort of learn these skills, I think we thought it was initially important to gauge where our students were at, and so we created a survey, and we administered that survey to kids in grades 6 through 8 in October, and then we'll do a post-survey at the beginning of June just to see where our work is at with them. We've tried really hard to embed ourselves within the classrooms, but also work with staff in teaching them skills on how to help students with these deficits and help them understand themselves and give them some perspective taking and empathy skills. We've gotten into all 3 grades into the classrooms and worked with them on stress management skills. We've done some lessons in, especially with our 6th graders, and really looking at where do they feel their causes of stress are coming, where are they in terms of their organizational skills, and how we can best help them with that moving forward, because we do see as they go into 7th and 8th grade that skill, if it's not developed at the point where we need it to be, it then causes them stress to be able to manage the course load in each of the academic areas. We've gotten them to be able to practice some strategies, and Gretchen has introduced a wonderful app that our entire 6th grade has been able to download and put on their Chromebooks, and we're working with 7th and 8th to begin to do that.
Sure. Yeah, this is an app that I really love that is called Stop, Read, and Think. And some of you have heard me talk about it enough that you're probably like, oh, not Stop, Read, and Think again. But it's a wonderful app that parents, I think, would enjoy taking a look at. You'd enjoy taking a look at it yourselves. So it's something that it's an app that allows you, if you choose to, enter your emotions at any given time, and also enter, I'm holding my hand here like I've got my phone in front of me, and also enter how you may be physically feeling at any given time. And then it will take what you've entered and provide you with a meditation to utilize in that moment to sort of help your stress level. Now, I think initially, a lot of times when people hear the word meditation, they may think, meditation, that's some kind of fancy technique. I don't know if that's something I can do. I'm not someone who is involved very much in meditation and until I learned about mindfulness, and really what it is just kind of taking a minute and to calm your mind and to listen to something that kind of takes you out of what you're normally thinking about and allows you to kind of focus on the moment. So it's not something fancy, it doesn't require special skills, and through the use of this app, students have found that wow, like this is kind of enjoyable, and when I'm done with it, I feel really relaxed. So if we can begin to introduce things like that to children at this level, that's a lifelong thing that they can carry with them. And it'll be really important for them to know that there's tools they can turn to, especially when they're in high school and feeling stressed. I know the high school does do a wonderful job of introducing things as well. They do some yoga up there, and they try to get the students involved in a lot of things in regards to stress management. But I think if we can catch them at this age, and I know even at the elementary level, they're going to be introducing mindfulness so that right from the get-go, our students can be learning these things that will help them throughout their school career. So that'd be great. But yes, you can download it. It's called Stop, Breathe, and Think. And it is a free app, and primarily all of what's on it is free. There's a couple of things that you can choose to pay for, but regardless, all the others are free. So I highly recommend it. Yeah.
Now, just anybody who's out there, feel free, kind of, if you're looking at your screen right now, on one side, you've got a Google form that you can post live questions right now. If this is your first time, we encourage you to post anything that you'd like out there, and we will answer it in the moment. So if you are viewing that Google form that's on your right, go ahead and post a question if you can. Just kind of a follow-up. I'm thinking about kind of our kids at home and kind of the parents and what they could do. How can a parent might be struggling with their student at home, and they're not really sure what they can do, but they're not really kind of wanting to leap into pursuing some kind of outside person that they're going to have to pay money. They're just looking for some kind of feedback and maybe some services that school might provide. Where do they start? So,
I would say contact any one of us directly. So we have 3 guidance counselors, myself, Angela Gavin, and John Powers, and we have Gretchen, who are all accessible to anyone at any time. Emailing and calling us is great, always keeping us posted sort of on how your students feeling when they're coming home. We tend to see a shift throughout middle school as they grow and change and mature. So they maybe have transitioned into the middle school in 6th grade very well and are doing really well. And then as they go through the grades, we'll start this emotional roller coaster, we like to call it, through adolescence, and really might struggle at times with things that used to be quite simple for them to do, whether that's workload, relationships with their friends, relationships with parents. Some of those dynamics tend to shift. So we always say call us whenever you have any concern, or you're just wondering what you can do at home maybe a little differently to better help your child. We always, and we have a very active department page that you can access that has a lot of parent resources on there. We have a Facebook page as well that you could access resources for yourself and for your child. When we did go in the classrooms, we provided them with a lot of coping strategies this year that we had them practice, and we've posted those on the wellness page under their homework page. Strategically, we thought that was better than handing them paper and knowing they probably will just discard that. Now that they all have Chromebooks, they can access those strategies. And so when you see your child stressed, maybe reminding them, remember, let's try some of those strategies that your counselors kind of have gone over. Helpful reminders like that will let them know it's okay to practice these things and try them. I think at this age, they sometimes think it's a little funny or a little weird at first, but then they really get into it once they start it and try it.
Sure. Yeah, and I would say also, in addition to what Jess just said, that first and foremost, I think as parents, what we sometimes forget to do is when our child is stressed, we sometimes do want to jump in and just offer them something to fix it or make them feel better. But sometimes what they want us to do is just listen to them, let them share with you whatever it is that they're feeling stressed about. Just sit with that for a little bit, because sometimes if you jump in too quickly with do this or do that, they think, well, you don't understand, you don't get it. And so that I would recommend first and foremost is just really take the time to sit and try to listen to what it is that they're feeling stressed about, and that will go a long way. The other thing I would add to what Jess said is that if you contact us, we can kind of help you decipher whether your child is struggling with something that we really consider part of normal adolescent development, or whether it seems like something a little bit more and that they may need some additional assistance with, either from a guidance counselor or myself. So that's another thing we can help you with, because this is an extremely challenging time for students because, again, this is probably the greatest time in their lives for emotional turmoil. It really settles out more as they get to be in high school, but the middle school years, I can't stress enough how challenging they are emotionally because of where they're at in their brain development. There's a lot going on up there, and they get confused by it. They don't really understand what's happening with them. And on that note, I wish I had it with me. I have my stack of books here to talk about, but the one book I could not put my hands on because it's possible I lent it to someone is a book called Why Do They Act That Way? I absolutely love it. It's by Dr. David Walsh. And when you read it, you just think, oh, that makes so much sense. And as a parent, you can really feel like, oh, I get it now, why they're flying off the handle over nothing and they're crying one minute and then the next minute they're really happy. That's all part of what's going on for them. That's normal, even though it's not fun to live with.
Mm-hmm.
It is very, very normal. So I highly recommend that if you want to get some real specifics on what's going on with their brains at this age and why they're acting the way they are. And that, again, is called Why Do They Act That Way? By Dr. David Walsh. But again, those are things that you can contact us about. And we can say, well, fill me in. What are you seeing at home? And we can kind of help you navigate that.
We had going back to Nature's Classroom Week last week, we had a great experience, working together with kids and parents and our teacher chaperones and some of our parent chaperones to really, for some kids, it was the first time they had been away from home without their parents. And some kids, had some anxiety about it, and it was just reasonable. But the way that the kids, together with parents and staff, kind of worked through that, and were able to just overcome some of those anxieties and fears, employ some strategies, in order to do so, get enough support, but also be able to kind of really empower themselves by, getting through that first night and then enjoying that week was a kind of a great experience. Now we have little moments like that throughout the 3 years, but that was one example that I saw. I remember one little guy really, really struggling with it initially and just doing a fabulous job. And I'm sure he and his parents are really, really proud of him for that. So it was a great way for kids to kind of work through some natural anxiety that would be from being away from home for 4 days.
Yeah.
And I can't reiterate enough kind of exactly what Jess and Gretchen were kind of indicating about the amount of development and growth that occurs within the middle school level. You kind of lose your child. I mean, they kind of disappear. And who's this other person that's kind of wandering around your school, around your house? So definitely part of that is kind of par for the course. That's kind of what happens as far as the development in the middle school. That's why a lot of the educators at the middle school level like being here, is just kind of the amount of change that occurs during that period of time. But reaching out to the school and talking to a counselor, a principal, a teacher, just to kind of see what you're seeing at home is something that is kind of traditional and or something that they should think about and be concerned with. We're definitely a great resource to kind of direct you in the right direction, for sure.
Yeah.
So you guys have had a lot of opportunities this year, well every year, but
Yes.
this year to talk to kids about, what social emotional stuff that they're struggling with, but also when you've gone into the classroom, so I'd be curious about how, how did they respond to some of the strategies that you were kind of working on? Like what was if you asked for their feedback or just saw their reactions, what did that look like?
It was pretty amazing because you go into it. I mean, we're working with teenagers who are not the most receptive to things that feel uncomfortable or might look a little silly. And so, we all went into the classrooms together hoping it was going to work, but kind of looking at it like they might not be into it. And it was amazing. I mean, there were definitely kids that had a harder time with it, and some that really took the strategies and just used them. And I think the general overall feedback was, wow, these really do work. From our youngest 6th graders to our oldest 8th graders. It was amazing to me to see them do that, because I think typically in the past when we've gone into classrooms, we haven't had the ability to be able to teach as many coping skills. It's more curriculum based, where we're running through different kinds of programs with them. And this was really some of those raw coping strategies where we were really having them be in the moment and practice and forget about everybody else that was around them and just do it for them. And
Yeah.
I think it was amazing.
Well, what I thought was so wonderful is what a large amount of participation we got. So for instance, like when we were in the 7th grade, we did the signs of suicide curriculum in that grade, and then following that at the end of it, because we wanted to and had the time, we did some of the work with the Stop, Breathe, and Think app. And I was really curious how many of the students would actually close their eyes at that time and get themselves comfortable to participate. And I would say, like, even, in a classroom with maybe 23 or 24, there would maybe only be a couple of students who didn't choose to close their eyes and were just kind of looking around to see if their friends were doing it or not. So the fact that they did, and then I remember at the end, some of them just were like,
yes,
good.
Yeah, they really
like,
did.
They had allowed themselves to really take it in.
Really do it.
Yeah, and they recognized that it felt good.
Right.
So that was huge, I thought.
And I think what was a credit to you is Gretchen had run what we call an unconference with some of our staff and taught them this app as well. And so by the time we had gotten to the 6th grade, some of our teachers had already started using this with their students, unbeknownst to us. So it was nice when we went in, they said, oh, we've tried this, let's do it. And we're able to get right on. And that's kind of the social emotional learning we're talking about, where teachers too are now becoming more invested in it and really wanting to help their kids feel more relaxed so that they can learn. I think we know if they're not relaxed and they're not feeling good about things, they're not really able to soak in the academics. So that was nice to see too, as we went through the course of the year, that some teachers had sort of jumped ahead, which was great.
Yeah. And something like Stop, Breathe, and Think, which is about mindfulness, you might be wondering sort of like, well, where does mindfulness fit into social emotional learning? Where it fits in is that it all has to do with self-regulation. So anytime you're teaching a student to utilize a mindfulness activity to regulate themselves, that is social emotional learning. So it's critical, because that's, again, a lifelong skill that people need to have. So,
Yeah, I know, this is a question probably for Peter and I. A big kind of question that we've gotten kind of in previous sessions that we've had is about school-based contributions to stress. One of the main ones is around homework. And I think one of the questions might be around kind of where we might be in kind of our work with kind of understanding homework at this point. I mean, I'd be happy to answer that. And we've been kind of working with team leaders to kind of work through kind of understanding of where we are with what we would expect from students as far as homework. We have given most recently the second homework log to kind of fully kind of understand. We had implemented some things based off of kind of the first homework log to have an understanding of like how much nightly homework per class, and teachers kind of taken an active approach to trying to adjust much of that practice to kind of align themselves and learn from those practices. We gave that second survey homework log most recently, and are trying to kind of analyze a lot of those results to kind of implement as best we can now, but also just have a kind of a greater strategy for next year as well. So.
I think I think we've become more cognizant of it, which is important and a good first step. I think one thing that we still struggled with is still seeing a real range.
Yeah, that's right.
That kids experience both experience homework, and how much time it takes in very different ways.
That's right.
We have the majority, I think, are well, more than the majority. The great majority are kind of in a position where we're at a place where it's, close to what we would say to be reasonable. I think, but there's still a chunk of kids, and those kids are incredibly important, that are spending too much time. And how do we support them, and how do we differentiate homework in order to make sure that everyone gets what they need? Because we think a certain aspect of homework can be valuable to teaching it, otherwise we wouldn't be giving it at all. But we want it to be reasonable and not counterproductive. So we're still working on that element. And that's an important part of this next part of the conversation about, what are limits, but how do we make these limits work for, all kids? And if there's a small group of kids who really are struggling, significantly to be within that reasonable range, how do we work with them as well in even a more pronounced fashion? So that's something that kind of I've seen this year, and it's not completely surprising, but it was, it was pretty significant that we're working on.
Well, that just makes me think about how, like, when we're talking about the executive skills development within the middle school age range, there's such a wide range of difference. Students have strengths and weaknesses in all those executive skills. And so hearing Peter talk about that makes me think how, okay, so the child who's really struggling with having the amount of homework that they do, is that a child who struggles more with certain executive skills, right, that they haven't developed yet, whether it's time management or task initiation, or so maybe we'd be able to learn more specifically about those particular kids, which are their areas of weakness to then help them with, because there is such a range. And that's another important thing for parents to recognize, is your neighbor's child who might be in the same grade could be, right on top of things and really organized and getting everything done. And you might be seeing your child and think, what's going on? But there's such a range in how they're developing these skills that it doesn't mean there's something wrong with your child. It just means that they are not there yet in their development. But that can be a tricky one too.
That kind of goes right into a question that we just received about how we might be helping students to be more efficient in how they approach the homework. What are some of the ways that, we as a school and parents at home can partner with us, for those kids who,
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the executive functioning piece of the skills that we need to develop, but I think there are actually some simple things that have to do with the way kind of we interact with technology and how that's kind of become a greater and greater distraction for our students.
Yes.
We're dealing with oftentimes at the middle school level. I dealt with recently just some group text messaging and I looked at the times in these text messages, and they go late into the night and into the early morning. And I know many of these students are using their cell phones as kind of their alarm clocks, and I understand that. But just students are kind of getting what I would call not quality sleep during these period of times, where they're just hearing a vibrator, a ding or something, and maybe they're not waking up from that noise, but it is a distraction. That distraction is kind of continual during their actual homework time as well. So where, you think as a parent, when you were a student, and what it kind of took in the environment, you needed to have an actual dialed in thought to be able to think critically. Our homework that our teachers give is designed to be meaningful and rigorous and require some really critical thought to answer those questions. And if the student, while they're trying to answer and work through this homework, is distracted or is occasionally answering a text, they're not able to kind of really dive deep into those questions. So that can also, at the same time, as we try to analyze out kind of our outliers, a way that kind of extends out what homework actually is, where what we might call it took my student an hour, it might be over an activity that might take 30 minutes or 15 minutes, but there was a lot of kind of having to refocus, lose focus, refocus, because there's a lot of texting that is going on at the same time. Some simple things though is kind of having a kind of a set or a common location for students to complete their work. This might be at a kitchen table or at a desk, where you're not necessarily at the middle school level. I would still encourage some supervision. This is not. I wouldn't say that the bedroom with their door closed is the best place for them to do their work, even if they've got their computer there and their desk that's in there. Middle school
it's certainly not for all kids.
Not for all kids.
I think you do really need to. You need to know what your kid, try to figure out what your kid needs. Yeah, some will need that quiet space, and that that they're able to do their homework, fairly well in a reasonable amount of time, and their habits as far as cell phone use and technology use beyond that. And you can start with at the kitchen table, and you can go to the door open in the room, and for some kids, they can close that door, but I think it's at the same time giving yourself license to say, okay, my child's going to stay at the kitchen table, and that's not a bad thing.
Right.
That's just they just need that supervision and support, you know, differently maybe than my other child, you know,
Absolutely,
and you know, and again, I think especially with the, like kind of the cell phone texting use, like you need to kind of slowly release your control until you're, you know, until your child is ready to take on that independence. Because most kids, as Gretchen, you know, kids are going to continue development into their 20s, you know, and I think it's good that kids are having these tested in this way as far as like their ability to handle technology, but we can't just kind of, it's like we're not just giving them the car keys,
Right.
you know, without a lot of supervised practice before they're ready to take it on by themselves.
Yeah.
I think some simple monitoring, their own self-monitoring too. So a lot of times I will say to kids, I want you to, you know, start with the homework that you think, you know, you feel the best about, right? So that they can get a jump start and feel good, and time themselves for a half hour. Literally set a timer, and then know that a lot of times that will drive a student to really stay focused for a half hour and get the work done. Another technique we've tried is estimating before they start, maybe writing in their agenda, or some kids have used a small notebook to say, my English, I'm guessing that's going to take me 20 minutes tonight. So you do a column of guessing what it would take and then actually what it took. And then that gives us, a lot of times kids will come back to me and say, oh, I thought it was going to take me 20, it really took me 40. And then we can sort of have those conversations on what happened over the 40 minutes. Were you really working 40 minutes? Did you get distracted by the phone, like Mr. Jordan's saying? Did you get up and walk around? Or was it just that difficult? And maybe we need to have discussion with your teacher in terms of how can we better help you with that type of assignment.
And I think that type of, you know, kind of logging, you know, it's just like, you know, when you do it, you know, about like what you're eating or whether you're exercising, like it can help you identify where those trouble points are. So it might be a child can initiate the math homework with no problem, but when they're having an assignment where they have to do some substantial writing, that's dragging on, and that initiation at that point is really hard.
Right.
So by logging it and kind of capturing, you know, how much time you're spending and where it's kind of becomes a struggle point, we can kind of identify those areas, find out what skills, you know, or you know, we might need to work on, and create a kind of an approach to it so that kids can get more and more efficient and feel more in control of of that time.
Yeah.
Kind of shifting there's been some kind of district work. Jess, I know you're a part of the group. I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, what that group is called and what kind of things have come out of that district group.
Yeah. So I'm part of the district student stress task force that was started by our superintendent, recognizing, I think, a lot of the feedback from the community, the students, the staff, the parents, that, you know, students definitely in this day and age are feeling stressed. And I think we need to recognize it's by a lot of things, and not just school, but as a school district, we need to look at what we can do to sort of decrease that. So I am part of that task force. There are many other staff members throughout all of the buildings in the district that are part of that. We have parents that are a part of it, administration, and our superintendent is on that as well. It's been a really nice experience to hear just different types of feedback. We've looked at a lot of different models that other districts are, you know, starting to implement, or even just piloting to see what works, whether that be around looking at homework as an issue, looking at outside recess, and whether we need to add more of that in, exercise and how that makes students feel better. You know, different types of programs that might work and be beneficial at all different levels in terms of, just like Gretchen and I are talking about, our abilities to have social emotional learning happening on a more consistent basis. So we've done some surveying, we've looked at a lot of data, and I know things will be rolling out soon. It's a long process. It's been a great process, but definitely just kind of funneling it all into one so that we can start making some changes and start, you know, making things maybe a little bit better and being a little more proactive is what we're hoping to do by the end of the school year. So
I think part of the reflection that we have with respect to that is also what do we as adults bring to the table?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I know I've been in the profession for a while now, and you know, it's become a more stressful profession. There's a lot of, you know, the whole accountability kind of era that we've been in for the last 10 years. There's a lot of, you know, pressure for teachers to perform, and they care about kids and they want kids to do well, but sometimes I don't think we're fully recognize, you know, I don't recognize what pressure I put on staff, and staff don't recognize what pressure they put on kids. And so I think, you know, we always kind of knew that to some degree, but I think this task force and some of the conversations this year have helped us to think, okay, we need to reflect more upon how do we make sure we do our best to kind of really get to the core of why we're here, and really is to help kids to grow and develop. And sure, we want to know how they're doing, but, you know, can we do that in a way, you know, can we kind of free ourselves so we can free children to kind of learn in a you know, in not in an environment that has undue stress. So that'll be part of our kind of work, our continuous work, as well as kind of reflecting upon our stress and how that kind of relates to kids.
And I think we also, you know, I neglected to say, I think we also as a task force look at how do we help staff feel less stressed and how do we help parents feel less stressed? Because certainly, as we were saying, this is a very trying time. And I think it goes across all levels. You look at kindergarten is, you know, it's a different kind of stress, but parents are still stressed at that level too. So really looking at how we can provide education and resources consistently across all grade levels so that parents feel like they have a soundboard to go to or some resources and answers that they can help their kids.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think even a product of, you know, us trying to do these videos and different things is we are trying to bring parents in and have that open communication, a line of communication with all of you. We're all in this together to really kind of help each other. You know, it takes a village. So, and this village is Holliston. So we're working all together and doing our best here, and want to help you all in any way you can. So feel free to reach out to us at any point in time. You know, these ladies are great resources, and we have some great resources in the school. As far as children, we have experience with just about everything. So as far as just needing a little bit of guidance, we can provide that for you.
Yeah, and as far as like these forums, we enjoyed kind of starting this off this year with these forums and having our first guest today.
Thank you.
And I think next year we're going to plan to do them kind of more frequently and more regularly. So you kind of might expect like on this time each month, we'll have it maybe a little shorter, but to try to kind of just have it become a more natural interaction, and just get more people involved, because it's a good way to kind of just, you know, have those conversations, but you can still have them at your kitchen table while we're here.
Yeah, great.
Well, I think on that note, I think we're going to wrap it up for tonight. So we thank you for joining us tonight, and we're looking forward to this kind of last push for the rest of the year. I mean, it's really going to go by so fast. It's hard to believe that we're already you know, at this point of the year. Before we go, can you repeat that app again?
Absolutely. Okay. Stop, breathe, and think is the app.
Breathe, and think. Okay.
Yes.
Stop, breathe, stop,
Yes.
breathe.
Yes.
And so again, thank you for joining us tonight, and we'll see you out there, you know, during drop off and throughout the rest of the year.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.